In a single year alone, private networks have laid 5,000 kilometers of new fiber optic cable across Zambia. This rapid physical expansion coincides with a recent agreement between the Zambian government and Google Cloud to construct a local center of excellence for digital innovation. The macroeconomic results of these projects are immediate. National internet penetration jumped from 53% to 64% in just 12 months. Overhead, a secondary layer of infrastructure is blanketing the nation, with Starlink rolling out direct satellite-to-cell coverage. This pace of modernization is entirely dependent on foreign direct investment from multinational technology conglomerates. But while the cables and cell towers are highly visible, the actual data flowing through them follows an invisible, often unregulated path. This creates a trap for developing nations. To achieve digital modernization, they rely on foreign networks that inherently route their sovereign data outside their own borders. To understand how this dynamic works, we have to separate the physical network from the information it carries. First is digital colonialism, when entities from the global north monopolize a developing country's physical infrastructure. Because it brings internet access, this hardware layer is celebrated as progress. Second is data colonialism, where raw data generated using that infrastructure is extracted, appropriated, and monetized. Unlike laying thousands of kilometers of cable, this extraction process is completely invisible and frictionless to the end user. Citizens and institutions willingly sign away the rights to their information in exchange for access to these modernized platforms. Acquiring physical network connectivity without owning the underlying data storage layer effectively trades a nation's sovereignty for internet access. Look at the routing of Zambian data. The Umoja project is a fiber optic network connecting Kenya, South Africa, and Australia, with a key node in Zambia. While South Africa takes a strict regulatory approach to protect its borders, Zambia has adopted an open stance without equivalent safeguards. Highly sensitive information flows freely along these routes, streaming entirely out of the country to offshore server farms. Zambia does have local capacity, like the Infratel National Data Center. However, local hosting here is not mandatory for state or academic data. The infrastructure exists, but it remains severely underutilized. The legal reality of this setup is absolute. The moment data crosses the national border, it exits Zambian legal jurisdiction. By failing to mandate local hosting, the country functionally operates as an unregulated extraction node for foreign corporations. A 2025 study by researcher Billy Sachone measured how aware Zambian institutions are of this vulnerability. The study interviewed 28 key stakeholders, including regulators from the Tech Ministry, the Communications Authority, and higher education experts. This pie chart illustrates the stakeholders' ability to distinguish between data and digital colonialism. It shows 64% of respondents cannot tell the difference between acquiring physical hardware and the subsequent data extraction. When the regulatory class cannot define the mechanism of extraction, drafting protective cyber laws becomes impossible. This next chart shows knowledge of data's final destiny. Here, 57% of the surveyed experts admit they do not know where their generated digital data finally ends up. This spreadsheet from the raw interview data breaks down the responses by sector. Rows 4 through 11 demonstrate that this vulnerability is not isolated. It exists evenly across both public government bodies and private institutions. Despite lacking the technical tracking to locate their information, the study found a staggering 93% of respondents expressed deep discomfort with their data being stored offshore. Digital infrastructure is being aggressively adopted at a pace that vastly outstrips both stakeholder awareness and regulatory understanding of data flow. To understand why tech giants provide this infrastructure, we have to look at scholar Shoshana Zuboff's theoretical framework of surveillance capitalism. Offshore data does not simply sit dormant on a server. It is actively mined, categorized, and fed into predictive behavioral models. The Global South generates the raw data through daily digital interactions, but multinational tech conglomerates privatize the resulting algorithms and the massive financial profits they generate. Foreign tech investment functions primarily as the foundation of a macro-scale surveillance economy rather than a benevolent modernization effort. The consequences of this extraction are about to multiply with the rapid expansion of the artificial intelligence economy. To function accurately and without bias, AI models rely entirely on massive, contextual, and localized datasets. Right now, Zambia is giving away its national data for free, while simultaneously paying foreign entities for the physical networks required to transport it. Without owning and storing their native datasets locally, developing nations are structurally locked out of training and building their own contextual AI models. A country cannot participate in the future AI economy if its intellectual property and citizen behaviors are permanently controlled by foreign conglomerates. To address this, researchers propose an urgent capital allocation toward locally owned digital infrastructure. This requires aggressively expanding national facilities, like the Infratel data center, equipping them with the computing power and security necessary to handle sovereign loads. Second, critical state, citizen identity, and academic data must transition from optional to mandatory localized hosting. Third, the government must enact objectively strong, equitable cyber laws. These regulations must force tech conglomerates to operate strictly under local data privacy mandates, preventing them from dictating terms to the host nation. Physical infrastructure and legal frameworks have to work in tandem to prevent unilateral narrative control by global tech monopolies. Connectivity is merely the transport layer. True digital modernization requires a nation to assert absolute geographic and legal control over where its data rests.